Hey everybody, welcome to Board Online, Board Offline. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to play Sanctuary, the Keeper's Era. Now this is a game that will be coming up on Kickstarter here very soon. In fact, when this video is posted, it may already be up on Kickstarter. You'll be able to find a link for it in the description below. This is a card battle game where each of you will start with a deck of cards. You also have these sanctuaries in front of you that are the thing that you're trying to defend. Each player starts with 4 sanctuaries, and then they have all kinds of creatures or soldiers. They're called acolytes in the game, but those are your soldiers in the game, and they're going to be trying to attack the sanctuaries in the lanes in front of them. But then, of course, the other players' acolytes can get in the way. Players also have a champion that they use that is a much more powerful unit that they can come out on the battlefield and really help to swing things in their favor. The sanctuaries themselves have abilities where if the sanctuaries remain in play long enough, they charge up, and then these abilities become useful as well. And you also have rituals in your deck that basically are spells that can have all kinds of effects on the battlefield and hopefully swing things in your favor as well. This game has some of the coolest artwork I have seen in a while. I really like the artwork. I have 6 factions that they have sent me for, to try the game out and to film this how to play. Each faction's artwork is very distinct. Like, you can see a single card, and granted they are, they have their own color that is kind of for the color scheme that fits, but the artwork itself, I think you'll see as we go through some of these cards, how distinct each faction is. And I think there's a lot of really cool ideas here that maybe could really bring something new to a 2-player card battle game like this. And I think there's a lot of cool stuff here. I think that you may find that this is something you're interested in. I do want to mention our sponsor, Board Game Co. This is a great website where you can buy, sell, and trade games. Buying games, you can find that's something you see pretty much everywhere, but they have a great selection of games for you to choose from. They have great prices over there. You can sell games to them, which is not something you see quite as often online, but they will take games from your collection that they're looking for, and you can sell them directly to them, and obviously get paid for that and use that money to further increase your own collection. And they'll trade games with you, which is really neat how they do this. They will link directly into your Board Game Geek account, see what games you have for trade, and they will figure out which one of those games they want, what games they have that you want, and they'll build a list right there on the website for you to use to help expedite any trades you're trying to make. They have a value system that makes the trading very clear and easy in terms of what you can expect to get for your game, what other games you could trade for those games. So go over to Board Game Co. There's a link in the description below so they know that I sent you over there. Board Game Co. is a great place to buy, sell, and trade your way into a better collection. All right, without anything else, I want to get down to the table. I'm going to show you how to play Sanctuary, the Keeper's Era. In Sanctuary, there are 4 types of cards: Acolyte, Champion, Ritual, and Sanctuary. Acolytes are soldiers and creatures the player summons to the battlefield to attack and defend sanctuaries. Many will have special abilities. Acolytes are the core of the player's forces. Every acolyte is unique with its own combination of values, attributes, and abilities. Acolytes will always come into play exhausted. An exhausted acolyte is turned sideways like this, while an active acolyte is upright. Exhausted acolytes may not attack or defend, however, any abilities they have are still active. Champions are the most powerful characters a faction has to offer. If a champion is ever destroyed, it is placed face down in its controller's champion area. Champions and acolytes share many similarities, and for this reason the term unit can refer to either. A unit's summoning cost is found here. The name of the unit is here along with the type. This icon shows which faction the unit belongs to. This is the unit's attack stat and health stat. Common and special attribute icons are found here, and any special effects are found here. Rituals may inflict direct damage, disrupt the enemy formation, or allow for strategic maneuvers. Rituals have much of the same information on them that can be found on units. Players will find the summoning cost here, the name of the ritual card, the ritual's faction, and a description of what the ritual does. Rituals are always resolved immediately after being cast. Once resolved, they go directly to the discard pile. They are not considered to have been placed in the battlefield. Sanctuaries are waypoints for channeled energy. When a sanctuary reaches its maximum splendor, its abilities affect the entire battlefield. A player wins the game by destroying all enemy sanctuaries. The name of the sanctuary is found here. This is known as the Aegis track, which represents the amount of damage a sanctuary can withstand before collapsing. This is the Splendor track, which represents the countdown to the activation of the sanctuary's ability. And finally, the ability of the sanctuary is described here. Each player will begin the game with a hand of 4 cards drawn from their deck. The player's hand of cards is kept secret from the other players unless otherwise instructed. The player's deck is placed here. The player may count the cards left in the deck at any time but may not actually look at the cards. There should also be space for a discard pile next to the player's deck. This deck must include, at the beginning of the game, exactly 28 cards consisting of acolytes and rituals, as well as the champion kept on the outside of the deck. Players may build a standard faction deck, which is made up of cards only from a single faction, or they may use all the cards in their collection to build the deck. In the case of a faction deck, there's a limit of up to 2 copies of each card in the deck. In the case of a custom deck, the limit is a single copy of a card. Next to the deck, there needs to be room for a discard pile. The player may inspect this discard pile at any time. Destroyed acolytes and any resolved rituals are placed in the discard pile, as are any cards the player discards from their hand. The player's champion is never shuffled into the player's deck and instead starts the game in the player's champion area. If the champion is ever destroyed on the battlefield, it is placed back into the champion's area, face down, and may not be used for the rest of the game. The player places their 4 sanctuaries in the sanctuary area as you see here. These are arranged by increasing splendor value from left to right. If there is a tie, as you see with these 3, the players may freely arrange them as they see fit. The battlefield area is a 4x4 grid in the center of the table where acolytes and champions are deployed. I'm currently only showing you 1/2 of that 4x4 grid. The grid is divided into 2 2x4 grids, with each player taking a side. Normally, you would not have cards face down in the grid like this. I have just placed them out there like this to help you visualize the grid better. A player's side is made up of 4 attack positions and 4 defense positions. The vertical columns that connect the sanctuaries are called lanes. For the rest of the video, I'm going to remove this visual representation of the grid, and anytime you see a sanctuary, just know that we're looking at a lane in front of it with a defense position and then an attack position. When a player puts a champion, acolyte, or ritual into play, this is called summoning. To put a card into play from their hand, the player must first pay the essence crystals based on the summoning cost. After paying the card's cost, the player places it on the battlefield if it is an acolyte, or resolves it if it is a ritual. A champion, of course, would come directly from the champion's area, assuming it's still face up. A unit is deployed immediately after it is brought into the play area by summoning or any other effect. Units may be deployed to any available position on the battlefield. A unit is deployed immediately after it is brought into play by summoning or any other effect. Units are deployed to any available position on the battlefield. By default, units may only be deployed to their controller's side of the battlefield. Deploy units always enter the game exhausted, and then they become active at the end of the controller's turn, or if an ability or effect causes them to become active. Some cards may use expressions referring to the flanks of a card, such as the Cunning Instructor. A card's flanks are the slots immediately to the left and right of the card. If a card refers specifically only to its left or right flank, always consider left and right from the viewpoint of the card's owner. If the player wants to deploy a unit on the same position as another card they own, they must first destroy the card already in play. Then they may put the new unit into play. This is called replacing. The new unit must obey all the normal rules associated with being deployed. Some abilities and rituals let you move a unit already on the battlefield. The unit must be moved to a valid empty position on the same side of the battlefield. Players must keep in mind that all deployment restrictions still apply. Throughout the game, it's possible that both units and sanctuaries can be destroyed. A sanctuary is destroyed when its Aegis counter drops to 0. Damage done to a sanctuary persists from turn to turn, and when a sanctuary is destroyed, it is flipped face down, and its special effect is immediately interrupted. Acolytes and champions are immediately destroyed when they receive damage equal to or greater than their health stat. This damage must be done to them in a single player's turn, because damage to acolytes and champions is reset during the end of turn phase. Units can only receive damage while on the battlefield. A destroyed acolyte is moved to the discard pile. However, destroyed champion is moved to its controller's champion area and placed face down. Keep in mind that if a champion is forced to leave the battlefield for any reason, it is considered to be destroyed. There are many abilities and effects found on the various cards throughout the game. If a specific rule on a card is in conflict with the rulebook, always follow the card's rule and ignore the rulebooks. Some cards may state once per turn. Any card that states this is referring to the controlling player's turn. Now let's discuss the various attributes players will find on their units. There are 4 different common attributes. The first is Zealous, which is this middle icon here. Zealous units are always deployed already active on the battlefield. Fierce units, indicated by this icon here, are always deployed in an attack position. And units with Veil, this icon here, cannot be targeted by enemy rituals or abilities. The 4th common attribute is Reaper. Units with Reaper destroy any unit they damage by any means, whether or not they deal enough damage to actually destroy the unit normally. Now let's discuss the 3 special attributes in the game which describe the trigger condition for resolving a unit's ability. This icon means the unit's ability is ongoing. An ongoing ability is resolved anytime its requirements are met. In this case, you can see the unit gains +1 attack if it is placed in an attack position, or +1 health if it is placed in a defense position. It's also possible that a card may have a passive ongoing bonus, which will have no requirements. Abilities with this Genesis symbol are resolved the moment they are deployed. So as soon as the Cunning Instructor is deployed, units on its flanking gain +1 attack until the end of their turn. And abilities with this last word symbol are resolved the moment the unit is destroyed. As you can see, sometimes units may have multiple special attribute symbols. So in this case, the Genesis symbol means this is resolved when the Roar of the Peaks is initially deployed, and then resolved again when it's destroyed. Anytime 2 abilities would resolve at the same time, such as 2 opposing acolytes being destroyed at the same time, each with a last word ability, the current player decides the order in which the abilities are resolved. To set up the game, first flip a coin to see who the first player will be. The winner of the coin flip may choose to go either first or second. Starting with the first player, players place their sanctuaries in a row in Splendor order, as previously mentioned. In this case, we have 1, 2, and 2, and 4. Any sanctuaries that are tied for Splendor are placed in whatever order the player wishes. Players then place an Aegis counter on the maximum Aegis value for each sanctuary, and a Splendor counter on the 0 position for Splendor. The player then places the champion they're using in their champion area. The player shuffles their deck and draws their starting 4 cards. If the player decides that these 4 cards are not to their liking, they can shuffle them back into the deck and draw 3 cards instead. Players may do this only 1 time. Once players have set out their sanctuaries, their champion, shuffled their deck, and drawn their hand of cards, that's the setup. During a game of Sanctuary, the turn structure involves the players alternating turns. A player's turn is made up of 4 phases: the beginning of turn phase, the summoning phase, the attack phase, and the end of turn phase. These phases can be considered to be broken up into 3 subphases as well: beginning, core, and end. This delineation is useful in understanding the timing of abilities and effects. When a card refers to the beginning of a phase, such as at the beginning of your attack phase, the player must immediately resolve that ability or effect as soon as they enter that phase. When a card refers to the end of a phase, such as at the end of your summoning phase, these abilities and effects must be resolved immediately prior to concluding the phase. Certain cards may also refer to the core phase, such as during the summoning phase, and these abilities and effects can be resolved at any time during that phase. It is recommended that players announce the phases as they move into them in order to help remember all potential activations and triggers available to them and their opponents. If a player forgets to resolve an ability and has already moved past the appropriate phase or subphase, the ability should be considered null and the player should move on. In the beginning of turn phase, if the player has no cards left in their deck, they must then choose one of their sanctuaries to be automatically destroyed. Next, in the beginning of turn phase, the player gains 2 essence crystals. The one exception would be if this was the first turn of the game, in which case the starting player only gains 1 essence crystal. Remember, these essence crystals are very important as they are consumed to summon units or cast rituals. Also, it's important to know that there is no limit to the number of essence crystals a player may gather. After the beginning of turn phase, the player enters the summoning phase. The player will now resolve all abilities and effects related to this phase and can spend essence to deploy units and cast rituals in any order. After the summoning phase, the player enters the attacking phase. The player resolves all abilities and effects related to this phase, and then the player's units in the attack position now try to damage the enemy sanctuary in their lane. Since this unit was deployed to the defense position, it could not make an attack. However, if it had been deployed here, it could. For this example, I've removed all the other lanes so we can focus just on this lane, and we're going to say that our opponent is attacking us. With our Enraged Corruptor in the attack position, it would be unable to defend our Port of Savlar. If instead he was here, he could defend it. In fact, not only could the Enraged Corruptor defend it, but he must. Anytime a unit is in the defense position between an attacking unit and the Sanctuary, the attack is resolved against that defending unit. If, on the other hand, a Sanctuary is attacked while it is defenseless, its Aegis counter is reduced by the indicated attack value of the attacker. If a Sanctuary is repaired due to a card's effect, increase the Aegis counter by the amount indicated. If a Sanctuary has already been destroyed, it may not be repaired from that state. If a destroyed Sanctuary is ever attacked, the defending player removes the top card from their deck from the game face down. This card is not placed in the discard pile, but is actually replaced back in the box as it is entirely removed from the game. If the attack is instead resolved between 2 units, the 2 units inflict damage upon each other at the same time. If the damage suffered is equal to that unit's health or greater, the unit is destroyed. So in this case, the Enraged Corruptor, while defending the Sanctuary, would destroy the Whisper of the Peaks, and the Whisper of the Peaks would destroy the Enraged Corruptor, both of them going to their controller's discard pile. Once the attacking phase has been fully resolved, the player performs the following steps in order. All partial damage is reset on the player's units. All of the player's units become active. All of the player's sanctuaries gain 1 splendor. Keeping in mind that when a sanctuary gains its maximum splendor, its ability is immediately in use. All at the end of your turn abilities and effects are resolved in any order. The player chooses and discards any number of cards from their hand. Keep in mind that if the player is currently above their hand limit, which by default is 4 cards, they must discard down to their hand limit. And if after discarding the player is now below their hand limit, they draw back up to their hand limit. So there you go, that's everything you need to know to play Sanctuary, the Keeper's Era. I hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to check Sanctuary out over on Kickstarter, and be sure to check out all my other videos out. I've obviously got Kingdom Death. I'm getting ready. I've just got to catch up on a couple of production things that I've kind of fallen behind on because my dog ran away for an entire week. And then we're going to bring you a level 3 butcher fight for Kingdom Death Monster. I've never fought the level 3 butcher, so be sure to come back for that. And until next time, if you're bored online, board offline.